Welcome to another exciting edition of the Give Me Liberty podcast of the Standing for Freedom Center at Liberty University, where we defend life, liberty, and truth to ensure the foundations of freedom exist for the next generation. I'm joined by a dear friend, a good brother in the faith, Gabriel Rench, Waterboy. If those people who follow Cross Politic, I know there's just a few of you out there. I'm kidding, totally kidding. Brother, welcome. You're at Liberty Mountain.
Thanks, Ryan. It's good to be here, man. Last time I was here was, I think it was January 2020.
That's right.
Before everything hit the fan with COVID. So
that's right.
Good to come back.
So this was so you, Toby Sumter, Chocolate Knox. Chocolate Knox was sick.
Yep. He was out in the car having fun hanging out with you. And
we were in the studio.
Yeah.
And on that particular episode, I remember you guys emailing me and you're like, "Can we get Charlie Kirk?" And I'm like, "Charlie's not here. Charlie's not here." But
because that was back when it was the Fall Kirk.
That's right. That's right. But
we just assumed.
Yeah, it's like he's not in Lynchburg, but you guys have had him out there. And, and y'all, he was on this last season of Man Rampant.
Yeah, with Pastor Wilson. Yeah.
That was great.
Yeah, he'd come out to do an event at Washington State University, Wazoo, which is 7 miles from us. And one of his outdoor events went fantastic, and then he jotted over to our place before he flew out. So
the Prove Me Wrong series. Yeah,
so good.
Absolutely.
Good.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
You are going to be speaking to our students here in a couple of hours, going back, doing kind of a profile in courage, what happened in 2020, particularly in Moscow. Yeah. You were arrested in a outdoor worship event.
That's right.
It was on a Sunday.
No, it was on a Wednesday evening.
A Wednesday evening. Yeah. Okay. Describe a little bit about this, because we've talked about this before. You went to a Freedom Center conference one time, shared your story with all of us, but it was in the summer of mostly peaceful protest, the summer of love.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, to give a little bit of the political dynamics of Idaho is obviously conservative, overwhelmingly vote for President Trump kind of stuff. But we live in University of Idaho town, which is Moscow, Idaho, which is overwhelmingly liberal. And so we're this blue dot, red state kind of dynamic. And the blue dot is obviously caused by the university, their teachers, and so forth. And which means our city council is liberal. And you think back, it's hard to think back in 2020 and not chuckle about how everything happened. You think back in 2020, in my territory, our city council, before there's even one case of COVID in town, they shut down downtown, and they created this health emergency order that required people outside to social distance 6 feet where they couldn't wear a mask, because social distance was science back then. Right. And
I think there are people that are trying to still make it the science, but yes, I totally agree. Yeah.
I don't hear much about that defense anymore. So.
No, it's insane.
Yeah. And so they had told everybody, you got to wear a mask outside where you can't stand 6 feet apart. They had police patrolling up and down. I mean, the Orwellian, look in town was pretty epic. And so the way my church protests political tyranny is we just go outside and sing psalms and in Friendship Square, which is in downtown. It's kind of the center of downtown, sort of. And so we started doing that about once a month. Black Lives Matter came through town in June and July, and half of them wouldn't wear masks, or half of them would, and but they were allowed to do whatever they wanted. And they came.
Did they paint
town.
the city sidewalks or anything like that? Okay.
Yeah, because there's enough conservative influence in town where that would have not.
Yeah.
While we can't get a mayor elected or a city council member, sometimes we can get a city council member elected. It's overwhelmingly pretty liberal, but there's still enough conservative influence to hold check in some areas.
Right.
And so basically we'd done that for a number of months. I remember meeting with our sheriff, meeting with our chief of police, saying, don't enforce this. You have the law, you have the Constitution on your side, that kind of stuff. And September 2020, Wednesday the 23rd, I believe is what it was. After work, we'd do our psalm sings. Everyone just kind of 5 o'clock capping. We'd say, hey, psalm sing here, psalm sing Friendship Square. And we decided to do our psalm sing at City Hall parking lot. And you go back, Google my name and the arrest. And I remember walking into the parking lot, and there was these polka dot circles spray painted 6 feet apart so they could objectively see that we were 6 feet apart. I remember walking into the parking lot, thought it was, maybe some kids played a game earlier that day or something. And then realized when we started gathering together to sing, the cops were standing against the wall at City Hall. There's like 7 or 8 of them. And the cops had told my pastor, hey, we're going to cite or, maybe arrest for anybody who's not standing 6 feet apart or wearing a mask. I remember Doug turned around and announced that to everybody. And what was one of the glorious moments of that day was like no one moved. We had like men, women, and children and strollers, and everyone's like just stayed where they, after the announcement, just stayed where, they were, not the social distancing, helping each other hold hymn books up and everything. And then we started singing, and the cops immediately kind of left their line and came, and they approached my mom first, and my mom said, I'm with my son, so family was legal because COVID wasn't as big of a threat between family members or whatever. And and then the cops came to me, and I saw what they did with my mom, and I was like, it was so dumb. And so I put my arm around my buddy Tyler, who was standing right next to me, and I said, this is my friend Tyler, and just indicating I'm not social distancing and breaking their health emergency order. And so the cop asked for my driver's license, and I said, I'm not giving it because I'm exercising the Constitution. I'm breaking no law.
Right.
And kind of explained to the officer, you swore an oath to defend my constitutional rights.
Right.
And so you should be on my side.
Right.
And I should have actually handed him the hymn book, said, here, join me. Because the health emergency order was unconstitutional. And even within the health emergency order, it said your First Amendment rights are still protected.
Right.
And so even like
imagine that
inside the health emergency order, it said your First Amendment rights are not affected by this order.
Yep. Governor Ralph Northam in Virginia said something similar to in a private meeting with pastors. Like, technically we can't really enforce this. So they would issue a statement. It was almost like a political statement. Like we're gonna make it sound like there's for heft behind it, but honestly, like if churches wanted to disobey, they could, and there was nothing that they could actually legally do.
Which is why churches had been very disobedient that year.
Exactly.
Because that was nationwide.
100%. Yep.
And so, and the thing was in 2022. I mean, like our 2020, our mayor and city council shut down downtown. We lost 3,000 jobs in about 3 months after that emergency order was put in place. So people were really hurting. I mean, my county has got 40,000 people in it. You lose 3,000 jobs. I mean, it's a big impact.
Right.
And so it really hurt a lot of people. And it was crazy to me that more churches didn't join our protest.
Right. And
partly because they were scared, they were threatened. I mean, the threat of fine, 6 months in jail, $1,000 fine, that kind of stuff. And so it was really kind of tragic, at least in our county, how other churches didn't join the fight for, the poor and hurting and those who've been fired, like everyone we're supposed to fight for, And so 2020, so I got arrested after about 4 or 5 times of me saying, kind of ignoring the officer's request for my license. He proceeded to arrest me. And I remember my chief of police had to take my hymn book away from me to handcuff me. I mean, that I still have that very vivid picture in my mind when that happened, because it was like, this guy, my chief of police was a Christian, and he's taking my hymn book from me to arrest me for First Amendment protest. I mean, we were embodying everything, the right to worship, the right to protest, the right to petition our city council. We're at the building, the right to petition our city council. So I get arrested. I go to jail for like 3 hours or something. My sheriff was awesome because he's like, get this guy out of my jail. He doesn't owe us anything, no bond, no nothing. He's like, get him out.
Yeah.
And so after, I don't know, the 3 hours or whatever, they were able to book me out or whatever and take my thumbprints and all. And I was just talking to the cops as they're like taking my thumbprints, pictures, all this stuff. And like, you guys shouldn't be doing this. And like the lady that was booking me out couldn't answer half my questions. And that as I'm leaving out the back door, of course, not the front door, I was already too much attention happening. So out the back door, I remember walking by a room where 2 officers were in the room, not social distancing and not wearing a mask. And I said to the lady that was the cop lady that was the sheriff, the deputy lady that was let me go, I was like, these guys aren't social distancing or wearing a mask. You should arrest them too, because that's why I'm just getting out of jail right now for not doing.
Right.
And super awkward in the room. The guys were like, I understand what you're saying. You just need to leave. Just get out.
Yeah.
So there's all that. I mean, the mayor, 3 weeks before I was arrested, like September 5th, he was presiding over an outdoor wedding, not social distancing, not wearing a mask. You see him, the bride, the groom, groomsmen, all right there. No one's wearing a mask.
It's called selective enforcement.
100%.
Yeah.
It's the Gavin Newsom problem, right?
Right. Yep.
And so, long story short, God was very kind in that. We won the argument. We won the fight. The media blitz for me for the next week, 2 weeks, and ongoing was so massive. It pushed back on our city, and the PR problem that it caused them was super difficult for them to navigate through. Even Trump retweeted my arrest, which was...
I remember that.
It was just... So I had this big media blitz, Fox and so forth, Steve Deace's show, and I mean, I was on media back-to-back for like 2 days straight. And then like the next Monday or something, I think, so 5 days later, Trump finds it, retweets it, and then just the media blitz all over again. And I won the misdemeanor problem. They had to delete that problem. And then I got in a 3-year lawsuit with my city over violating my First Amendment rights and Fourth Amendment rights. That Thomas More Society backed me in that lawsuit, which was fantastic.
They're the same ones who backed John MacArthur.
That's right.
Yeah, our Catholic friends.
Yeah,
they pulled through.
Huge. I love the president. The president of Thomas More is he's like a godfather figure. He's like, I got you. I do everything for you. You know, he's awesome.
Is he Sicilian or?
I don't know. He's 75 or something like that. 76 probably now.
Yeah.
And he was just like, we can't let this happen. Oh yeah, I got you. Don't worry, we'll pay for it. And I got their money back because we won the lawsuit. But what happened during the lawsuit is I got access to all of city council's emails. And you just see the emails getting more afraid, more fearful, more like my media blitz after the arrest. We did a show, Cross Politic did a show after the arrest. That went all over the place. And then they're like, the city council's like, hey, just kind of bear with the storm. And then President Trump retweets it. And then the emails, city council emails just blow up and they're like, oh my goodness, this is horrible. So pretty funny to watch like the emails ramp up and then it gets to President Trump and it just got everybody. So God was kind. We won our 3-year lawsuit against the city. The federal judge ruled in our favor. And even, so this is something that churches need to learn is that you have to fight back on tyranny. We say this. This is a common saying in our community where it's like, the first, the first attack, the bad guy pulls over to the side of the road and tries to get you in the van. You need to fight at the first offense,
right?
Because it's only going to get worse from there.
No, that's right.
Right. He gets you in the van. It's just going to get worse.
That's right.
In the same way, Christians need to be better to read the narrative, read the stories. Like you got to fight at the first offense,
right?
And not let it get to the second, third offense because you might die in the third offense, kind of thing. And so
I remember. And so, by the way, just going back to 2020 and giving the full context, this happened in September. We had been at this since April.
Yeah.
And by September, most people knew it was a charade. By September, most people knew this isn't exactly, because remember, we went through June, we went through the summer protests. Yep. We saw people unmasked, unmasked, and not social distancing. Yep. If they were protesting in the name of, George Floyd, or protesting in the name of the LGBTQ plus identity groups or whatever it might have been, that was fine. Yep. It was the moment that families were singing in harmony in a mostly orderly way. Yeah. And by the way, the most compliant, these are the people that pay their taxes. These are the people that observe every law. And what you're talking about, which I think this is really important, Christians, more Christians that watch us understand this, but not everyone understands the concept of unlawful orders.
Yeah.
So the idea that a police officer or somebody in law enforcement could be given a directive
against the Constitution.
Yeah. So it is considered an unlawful order. And at that point, they do have discretion. They can exercise when it comes to enforcement because they take an oath to uphold the Constitution.
Yeah.
So as a sworn officer, what are they sworn to protect? It's not to obey every edict of public health officials. It's to uphold the Constitution.
Right.
And so.
No, huge conflict there. And,
yeah.
And it also goes to show, it's like my chief of police just like absolutely admitted he'd never thought through how to handle these kind of situations,
Mm-hmm.
didn't know how to. And so, but what happens is if you aren't taught, logic, reason,
Mm-hmm.
and the Constitution, what's going to happen is you're going to default to the people who can fire you.
Yep.
Versus actually to the Constitution that you should be upholding.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a very human problem we have, even in our churches and our culture. We're going to default to where the pressure point is at,
Right.
and not to where the truth is at.
Mm-hmm. That's right. I was just thinking of this. So in that first April, May, I think there were a lot of us who I was very, very skeptical early on. I was on a group thread with a number of conservative leaders all across the country that were seeing, hearing, and had hunches. My hunch is this thing is not as threatening as some people are saying. My hunch is that if we continue on this road, we're going to destroy the economy. My hunch is that it'll have irreparable damage on families. My hunch, and so people were sensing or feeling that this could be a huge disaster. And at that point, I remember, this was early on. There was a guy in Florida. Do you remember the first one of the first most famous arrests?
Is that Pastor Rodney Brown?
Howard Brown. Yeah,
yep,
Rodney Howard Brown. And I've had dinner with him. I've met him in DeSantis's Florida. It was actually Governor Brian Kemp that was the first to open up the state, and then
in Georgia.
In Georgia, which surprised a lot of people.
Yeah.
And then DeSantis followed suit. But Florida had one of the first arrests, and that's just to say, like, that at the very, very beginning, we didn't know what this was. We thought that it could be really, really dangerous. As soon as we recognized that the potency and the lethality of the virus wasn't quite what people were saying, there's certainly that broad definition of comorbidity, and that's kind of this blanket definition, which means that the CDC can classify anything as a COVID death at that point,
right.
because if you died of cancer,
but you had COVID,
all of a sudden. And
that was, you also knew that it was a scientific racket when you couldn't debate did they die with or from.
Right.
You couldn't debate that. That's not.
That's right.
Cool.
That's exactly right. So there's all kinds of issues there. In the aftermath, do you think I think a lot of Christians learned, but I actually believe that there are some. I was on I just saw yesterday a post. It was from Joe Rogan. There was a comedian, Brian Callen, who he's been on like the Goldbergs. He was like the PE teacher on the Goldbergs, and he was on the show, and he was debating Joe Rogan on the efficacy of vaccines all over again. It's so in the middle of what RFK is presenting, and he's the common concerns of every American household about these mandates and these vaccine schedules. Literally, I have a 13 or 14-year-old daughter, son, and the vaccine schedule when they were born versus today, it's like a four.
It's like doubled or tripled or something like that.
Fourfold increase over what it was in 2011, 2012 versus today. So clearly, there's something wrong. But there are folks who want to double and triple down on, you have to trust these healthcare professionals. Can't believe you would fire the CDC director, or you can't believe you do this or that. RFK has got to go. Yeah. So some have not learned the lessons of COVID at all. It seems like.
Yeah. And I would say, in addition to that, you see there's like this great rehab happening.
Yeah.
where you got like pastors like J.D. Greear and some of these great kind of mega church pastors who like did everything, complied with everything. Kevin DeYoung, they had on their website all the protocol and updated it weekly and monthly about how they need to be social distancing in church or obeying the mayor's orders, all this stuff. I I saved it because they want to. Again, the great rehab is you got to delete what happened in the past, not really acknowledge it, and just kind of rebuild, trying to move forward.
Right.
And that's happening significantly in the church. I hold the church most responsible for for the actions of what happened in 2020, and then of course the politicians, the political leaders, they're authoritatively responsible in a way that the church should have been accountability to the civil government,
the moral conscience,
the moral conscience, and the pushback and all that stuff. And they just weren't. In fact, they complied with everything. So I think the political and spiritual devastation that happened during 2020, and now the rehabbing of public figures who folded under it all, is almost a bigger problem,
right?
Because especially our pastors, we should be caring first and foremost about the truth and not our name, not our image, not our brand. And so we should acknowledge where we went wrong. I mean, I think Andrew Walker just did this today. I don't know if you saw Andrew Walker's tweet on this. Andrew Walker, in one of his books, wrote in defense of using.
The God and the transgender debate.
He was in favor.
And by the way,
of
Andrew Walker's a friend.
We
love Andrew Walker. Yeah,
he was defending the use of personal pronouns for trans people.
Yeah,
and then a guy retweeted his book today and that had the defense in it, and the guy said, "Hey, do you still sign off to this?" And Andrew Walker publicly retweeted the tweet and said, "I was wrong here. I updated the chapter, so you have an old copy."
That's right.
More of that should happen.
By the way, it's not that hard. I mean, what he did was great. I'm glad he said that, and you see how quickly people just move on. Like it disarms like immediately.
It's like, oh, thanks, great,
yeah, thank you,
right.
And it's no longer an issue. And by the way, so this is a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. We were sitting down with Scott Jennings, and Scott Jennings, as the guy on CNN, who's like the Lone Ranger.
The reason why everyone's watching CNN now
is like, oh, okay, like this free subscription's not worth it, because to watch him is wonderful. But he more famously, he was a part of the Bush administration, and I asked him about the era of compassionate conservatism. And I still think that there's lots of folks that have this reflex within the conservative evangelical world to have a posture and a behavior similar to the compassionate conservative thing. And when 9/11 happened, all of a sudden, we were put through a whole new gauntlet of regulations, policies, different things to
Patriot Act, all that stuff,
right? To tackle terrorism.
Yeah.
Now, fundamentally,
in the name of
terrorism, right? Yeah. And fundamentally, though, the belief was, and I, there were a lot of well-meaning folks that no, the American people are not the enemy. The American people are not the enemy, but there are enemies that are within the state, and we got to figure out who they are, and we've got to do these things in order to save or protect the republic. Yeah. But then, fast forward, this safetyism and all of that. As soon as this happened with COVID, something flipped in that script where it's not that the enemy is out there, like the American citizens, especially conservatives, especially people of faith in particular. There was this inordinate focus that you are the enemy. And if you don't follow these commands, we're gonna put a bunch of persecution and pressure, political pressure, legal pressure on you to comply. And it was selective enforcement.
So I grew up in Texas, was in Texas from 80 to 79 when I was born. I was born in 79. From 79 till 97. So I was there through the Reagan, Bush, Senior, Clinton, and then Bush became president in 2000.
Right.
But Bush Jr. became president in 2000. Very supportive of it.
Yeah.
Now I think George Bush is one of the worst presidents we've ever had in our nation's history. I'd put him in the same bucket as FDR, Woodrow Wilson, Abraham Lincoln.
Okay, I don't necessarily disagree.
I'm just blowing all that up.
Yeah,
we don't have to talk about it all, but I'm glad to.
But there's folks within my institution. There's folks abroad. A lot of Southern Baptists who would say, no, Bush was a great president. He had civility. He was born again. Yes. He carried himself with a certain level of dignity and decorum. Yep. He elevated public discourse because he didn't get down in the mud. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you think about all of those things. Yeah. Okay, so So why do you say
big statement? So
Yeah.
big statement for sure. Well, there's a number of examples I can give in addition to the kind of Republican culture he created. So in thinking of examples, first of all, the Twin Towers falling should have been the first indicator that we have immigration problems, and Bush didn't deal with it. We already should have known about it before that, but the towers fell on immigration, right? On illegal immigration or some sort of abuse of our immigration system. That should have flagged the immigration problem in the beginning. Secondly, so he's just not reading the tea leaves well. Secondly, he doubled the Department of Education's budget, which became the vehicle for the liberals. No child left behind. It became the vehicle that liberals imported DEI and woke ideology in our public schools. And first of all, like what Trump's doing, we should have no Department of Education. There's no reason for the federal government to have any say in what happens in your local public school in your city. And so the federal Department of Education was controlling culture in the public schools that ended up being very devastating to our culture. And a lot of kind, conservative compassion is a great road to major damage and the pathway to hell.
You think that's the woke empathy grew out of this?
Well, woke empathy became, at least thrived on it. I think conservatives have been empathetic, which has really been a string to pull conservatives into things and ideologies and political movements that they should never been involved in. So I think empathy is a problem within conservative roots for sure. The church tends to be compassionate. The church tends to be also manipulated by their compassion or empathy. I'd be using here. And so, secondly or thirdly, now, so immigration, he never hopped on that train, and he should have. Secondly, was Department of Education doubling its budget when he's a conservative and saying that, it's in that he's doubling the funding of organizations that should never have been conservative organizations in the first place. Thirdly, he didn't touch USAID. He had every opportunity. Conservatives have known since the 70s that USAID was bad.
Right.
Fourthly, he never did anything about abortion. He had the House and the Senate his first 2 years and didn't touch abortion.
That's right,
which is insane.
Yeah.
That's one of your greatest convictions as a conservative, and you have the House and Senate and you don't do anything about it?
Since 1971, Liberty University has had one mission: training champions for Christ. We've been at this for a while, and in the shadow of the Blue Ridge Mountains, we have grown to be a global force. Today, Liberty runs over 100,000 students around the globe, studying across 15 colleges and schools.
And among them, over 30,000 military students.
Across 700 programs of study, we train as one: nurses, artists, business leaders of the future and today. Together, we work to give back through service trips, local community work, and over 500,000 volunteer hours per year. And we play just as hard as we study, with 20 NCAA athletic programs and 40 club sports teams. So, who are we? We are Liberty University, and we train champions for Christ.
In addition to all this, he signed the Patriot Act.
Right.
He was the one that broke that instituted major Fourth Amendment violations in our airports.
Right.
Across the nation. And
illegal search and seizure.
Illegal search and seizure.
Right.
All in the name of compassionate conservatism and all in the name of fighting terrorists. It's been, airport security has been the biggest joke of our time. It's theater security. It doesn't work.
I have to say this. I totally agree. I was in Atlanta, and the TSA looked like a jobs program. It looked like a program that there were probably 100 folks that were there wearing the uniform, badged, all of that stuff. Most of them were looking at their phones. They're not dealing with travelers in such a way that, like, what is the function of your job? It's to secure the airplane. It's to make sure that the transportation is secure and safe. They had no actual functionality with what they were doing. Most were inhibiting the movement of the line. So they weren't making it faster, nor were they making it safer. And there was no illusion that their purpose there was to do anything to make the plane secure or to serve travelers. And so,
and this is also
yeah.
to the shame of the airline industry. The airline industry never pushed back. If the CEO of Southwest Airlines was still around today, he'd be embarrassed at what just happened.
Right.
With his own airline.
Right.
And so we've and so what has happened is this compassionate conservatism has forgiven Bush or overlooked Bush for all these major institutional problems that he has created, which also became the vehicle in a lot of ways for enforcing COVID policy in the airports. And so what conservatives need to be way more thoughtful, strategic, and theologically minded in our governance. And Bush ended up basically abandoning all conservative principles on the 5-6 things I just named.
Sure.
And in the end, it actually ended up doing more harm once the Obama administration got a hold of him and the Biden administration got a hold of him. You mentioned part of your question included just like, I think, a lot of people are starting to wake up now to a lot of these issues, but I think Trump into his first term was a kind of, in some sense, the proper medicine for the Bush-Obama administration for only taking us further into some level or form of some kind of controlling governance and socialism.
Right.
That Trump comes in office and he's like, what was that? He was like chemotherapy. What was the book that kind of used the analogy? He's like chemotherapy
or a tourniquet or whatever. Yeah.
Well, chemotherapy is it just kind of hits everything. It's indiscriminate in its
Yeah, it's going to kill the body, but it'll kill the cancer.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
And so I think that woke up. I mean, I didn't vote for Trump the first time because he was somehow pro-life but never.
That's not based. I did.
Never. Yeah, I know. A lot of people did, and I wanted to.
Sure.
But I only, you got minimum voting requirements. And one of my minimum voting requirements, I need to trust how you got to where you're at.
Right.
And I had no explanation from Trump on how he went from pro-choice to pro-life.
Other than he's a deal maker. He's a deal maker.
Yeah.
He's transactional.
Right.
So he believes in contracts.
Yeah. Which means he could have done some sort of pro-choice contract.
Right. Could have.
Possibly. Right. And so I just didn't have enough evidence or trust there to vote for him. And then after his first term happened, and I saw him pick battles with the media, which is something that Bush should have done a long time ago. I saw him.
Bush was the original worse than Hitler. If you remember, he was the original New York Times and others.
Oh, yes.
I mean,
I remember.
He was the original, the comparison with like Adolf Hitler. Yep. And this is where you knew the media was just completely unhinged. And then now, I mean, like if you look at him now, I mean, they love him because he, fawns over.
Because he did a commercial, COVID vax commercial with Obama, Clinton, and Bush.
Right.
It's like he's part of the obvious establishment of the uniparty.
Yeah.
And everything. So, of course, the media like him now. And so you have this this chemo that comes into play in 2016. And I start seeing him pick some good fights that I thought should have been picked a long time ago. And in addition to that, carry a sense of masculinity into the office that was something that needed to be in our leadership a long time ago. Now, Trump can kind of also use rhetoric in a way or attack Thomas Massey or go after people I don't think he should touch.
Sure.
But overall, I think he's been way more good for our country than maybe some of his personal failings.
I love what Ben Shapiro said. This is during the first term, but Trump is the kind of guy that he'll punch a leftist in the face, but he'll also punch the baby in the face. It just has and it's just because he'll swipe in every direction. There will be a moment where a baby will be in the pathway of that punch, and you're like, what just happened? And I don't mean that. I think he has clearly he has a lot of common sense. He clearly has a knack for maybe it's not he articulates a perfect political philosophy, but it's clear that he has instincts, and his instincts have largely proven correct in many of these categories. I just want to say this really quick. So the Bush Policy Center, I saw a recent clip of former President Bush kind of talking about, our current political climate, based on what he is seeing, how he's viewing the world. And so he said, more recently, it's no surprise. He goes back to the 1920s. He talks about nativism. Everything's an ism. Nativism, isolationism, and protectionism. America had an isolationist policy in the 1920s and 1930s until FDR came, and then World War II brought us out of isolationism. Nativism, we had an influx of Irish and Italian immigrants and Catholic immigrants into America. Yeah. Protestants were very much saying, hey, Romanism rebellion, right? We've got to squelch that. And then,
but at least they were assimilating in a way.
Yeah, that's right.
That our nation required.
100%. So they're very much a part of the Judeo-Christian thing. But then he was saying, well, protectionism, because it was all about labor and trying to make sure that the folks that were coming in weren't stealing our jobs. And so he says it all in such a way that you're like, okay, no, your people are nodding along, and that makes sense, and so on and so forth. But to your point, I'd put Bush 1, I'd put Clinton, I would put Bush 2, and I would put Obama in the same kind of category. So all 3 or 4. Statism. Yeah. Okay. So there's other isms, right? Statism, pluralism, pluralism in the sense that we cannot actually blame Muslims for what they think or what they do. Yeah. And then the last category, globalism. So what's interesting is that and I think you're absolutely right, while we have a huge immigration problem in the United States, open borders, we would send all of our troops and equipment, our treasure and everything to a desert to fight a war there. Yep. Meanwhile, we're importing into this country the very people that
terrorist
cells into this country that would actually destroy the country from within. Yeah. And that's the grand irony of it all, right? So let's fight it over here, but we're not going to actually fight the battles here.
Well, and you also have in the 80s, we funded the freedom fighters, which included Osama bin Laden, to fight against Russia.
Then that was the CIA? Yeah.
Yeah, whoever funded it. It was America that funded it.
Right.
And so we've been involved in our own self-destruction for a long time by good-hearted presidents who think they're doing the right thing.
Sure.
Versus this is why it's like, you got to base your governance on the Bible. You got to be principally minded, biblically minded, because there's a lot of crazy decisions out there where it might appear compassionate, but in the end destroy you.
Right.
And I think you brought up pluralism with George Bush, which brings me to my 6th problem with George Bush, was after the Twin Towers fell, within 2 weeks after the Twin Towers fell, he hosted a national prayer service at our national cathedral.
Right.
National worship service. And he had the imam there.
Yeah.
He had the imam there, a woman presiding over it, a Jewish rabbi there, and then Billy Graham preached at it. Mm. What does the Bible call that? The Bible calls that an idolatrous worship service. So here we have, if Obama would have done that, evangelicals would have been in an uproar.
Yeah.
But George Bush did that and got all the evangelicals in America thinking that this is a good idea and participating in this idolatrous worship service. That's a middle finger to God after the Twin Towers fell. Mm. And so a bunch of Christians just went along with this idolatrous worship service because compassionate conservatism. Mm. We did something very wicked, and I don't think the church even realizes and recognizes what happened in that worship service. Yeah. So even spiritually, Bush's compassionate conservatism veered into idolatry, and we should have nothing to do with that. So, you think politically, economically, spiritually, what George Bush had done in the name of compassionate conservatism was far worse than Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton.
I'll tell you this. So, there's so much there and unpacking that. And I don't disagree. I think what's interesting, this is what Scott Jennings was saying, is that this is about presentism. So looking now,
presentism.
Yeah.
Okay, presentism.
Yeah. But the idea that now we know, and I think
but we did then. That's my point.
Yeah.
Is a lot of people are wanting to say, 2020 hindsight.
Sure.
And all this, but I understand where you're going.
Yeah.
But my point is, we did know then, and our leaders should have known better, and are going to be very more responsible for God than everyone thinks they are.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways.
And so, interestingly enough, and I would say that I think the problem in the conservative evangelical world today is there's that residue that's still there, and there's a recency effect still there. That there are folks, and it's probably the older generation that look back still fondly of the Bush era, and thinking we just need to find a way to get back to that moral decency that he had, that he commanded, kind of like another version of Romney. But that definitely that idea of a moral figure who doesn't sound profane when he speaks. He doesn't. He's not going to be the kind of person that breaks decorum or civility or all of those things. I am for, and this is where I appreciate Os Guinness. I am for civility. I am for decorum. I'm for all those things, but on a principled basis. If it's if at the end of the day, you have people who are being scolded for their tone, but they're speaking the truth, and they're speaking it in a way that is unmistakably clear, and it is also in love, but they're still being scolded for tone. That's a problem, and I think we see that even today. In the broader evangelical world. So this is where Doug Wilson, your pastor, is often critiqued because, we don't like the way he says that. I'm just think of the Russell Moore thing more recently. Or the Moscow mood, right? Yeah.
So there's so much there to unpack. First of all, the church has been lied to that they need to be nice. That's been, 11th commandment that has driven, I think, a lot of the church's culture in the last, 40 years, my lifetime. I'm 46. And because we're going on this definition of thou shalt be nice, well, we've been easily manipulated to back away from fights that we should be fighting. How do you get freedom?
Right.
You have to fight for it.
Yep.
Not only, and this applies for civic freedom, war for independence. You have to get freedom by fighting, and you always will have to fight to be free. And this happens just with our own walk with the Lord. This applies to our own sin life. To be free means you have to fight against sin, which and that translates into your civic freedoms. You're to be free, you have to fight. And so we've been cowed into being nice versus being strengthened in striving for courage to fight. The church needs to fight against sin in our culture. The church needs to fight against sin in our own lives. It's just part of what it means to be a Christian,
right,
and a human. The liberals know they need to fight. The liberals know they need to dominate. The liberals know they need to take over. And for whatever reason, thou shalt be nice or whatever calculations going on there, we have refused to fight. And it's caused great damage to the church. I was saying this, if anything, COVID really showed me, besides how compromised the church was, is that the church is full of cowards. That's probably our we have a lack of courage in the church, which is why, let me just illustrate the math this way. Texas has something like 25,000 churches in Texas.
Right.
I mean, it's amazing. They're like Starbucks on every corner in the Northwest.
Right.
And, how many churches in Texas stood up against COVID tyranny?
Right.
I know some, but I know more about the owner of the gym in New Jersey standing up, the salon gal in Texas for standing up, John MacArthur for standing up,
right,
the restaurant owner in I forget where now, but for standing up, then hearing about churches actually showing courage and standing up.
Right.
And so out of all the thousands, hundreds of thousands of churches in the U.S., if the churches alone in the U.S. would have stood up, we would have ended COVID just alone if the churches would have stood up. But because we have such bad theology in the church, we don't have any courage in the church, we ended up being the most compromised institution when we should have been the wall for the people.
Yeah.
Not just Christians, but all the people who lost their jobs, all the people who were screwed during COVID. And so we need to recover what biblical courage looks like,
Right.
which means we really have to have a good theology of the church's role in society and with its people.
I think that's the bingo.
So you're looking for a university that's perfect for you, a school that has anything you could possibly need.
Anything?
You want a place that has the programs you want to study, and maybe a few more, just in case you change your mind.
I think I'm going to sign up for the fashion design program.
All right. A place with state-of-the-art facilities. I mean, look at this campus.
And who doesn't love big-time sports?
And great recreational activities.
Okay, now we're on a roll. Somewhere you can hike, slide, strike, shoot, climb, eat, and most importantly, eat. You want a place that takes you to space? Okay, maybe not, but we can teach you how to fly, or pastor a church, or run a business. And all that with a great view? Yeah, I think I know a place.
So 2 things on that. I agree with what you're saying. I think of states like Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, Arkansas, Alabama, Mississippi, like all of those kind of that where the West kind of, if you go from sort of west to east, back east, Texas is where you go from, the desert all the way to now you're in the southeast, right?
Yeah,
you go to East Texas, that's where you are. Yeah. There's like 5 climate zones. But like Texas and Oklahoma is kind of the beginning of the South, and then you got Mississippi and then the Delta and all of that.
And Virginia is part of the South.
Used to be. Virginia, you're right. Virginia and Kentucky are interesting because you have the South in both states, but then you also have the North and the Midwest in both states. So like Louisville is like a Rust Belt, and Northern Virginia is a part of the deep state.
Right.
So I mean,
DC area,
and you got Langley, and you got all that stuff.
Yeah.
So you've got a lot of folks that are kind of in the cabal. Yeah. But here's what I was going to say. One of it is that there's a theological issue. This was revealed in the sort of the Kevin DeYoung interview with Larry Arnn. Yeah. My kingdom is not of this world.
Yeah, right.
This is a consummate theme within the 2 kingdoms. And you have Lutheran 2 kingdom view, and you got the John Calvin 2 kingdom view. I think we've opted for Lutheran pietism. I think has taken hold in the United States. So we have this strict separation where if you ask most Christians, they think freedom is like that line from the Gladiator. Marcus Aurelius leaned over with a scepter. I touched it, and then I became free. Yeah. It was just granted to us by some monarch or despot or emperor. And the moment they changed their mind, we don't have it anymore. But what they don't understand is the roots of the Scottish Revolt, the Glorious Revolution, John Knox, all of that. Mm-hmm. We kicked divine right of kings to the curb a long time ago. And most American Christians don't know their own history. Yes. So they're failing to understand that. And that's why they think that courage is actually kindly waiting for the right thing to happen. Right. And God will decide when that moment is. Yeah. By the way, they're not Calvinist except when it comes to political freedom.
Yeah, right.
So that's where free will is out of the question. You don't have any volition. You just wait, and then God will grant you whatever, and then whatever comes, que sera, that's what our freedom will be, de jure rights of the day. Yeah. I had another component of something I was going to tell you. So the reason I believe that Southern states have so much weakness in particular, this is in red states, my home state of Texas and others, is because during COVID, they were not given this. So there were the extreme examples of like Ottawa, Canada, and Los Angeles County, California, and the northern part of Virginia, and it's just extreme. Most of the South were given options. You can, but we encourage you. You're allowed to. This is kind of during when things started to kind of string out over those months on end. Yeah. They were a little bit lax. And when the church saw that it had a choice, it didn't fight. Yeah. When it believed or perceived that, well, this isn't COVID tyranny, because they're not experiencing what MacArthur was experiencing,
Right.
or what James Coates was experiencing.
Right.
They
Obvious
say,
arrest or something like
right,
that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. What you experienced.
Yeah.
Because they didn't experience that, they thought, okay, we can just kind of settle and wait this out. I think that's what a lot of people opted for.
Yeah.
Those two things.
Yeah.
My kingdom is not of this world.
Yeah.
And we can wait it out.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one's driven by, or probably both driven by bad theology. And particularly my kingdom is not of this world. We pray every Sunday at church and probably in your family during the week. Our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven.
Right.
So, and then in the Gospel of Luke, it says that
I thought that was just rhetorical, poetic language.
Yeah,
that
right.
actually has some meaning to it.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
We're actually praying for God's kingdom to come
Right.
here. We know God's kingdom
Just thought that sounded
comes,
nice. Yeah.
which is also how we understand that kingdom is not of this world, is because it's coming from heaven.
Sure.
And it's going to absolutely dominate the world. It's not coming from, our president. It's not coming from the world. The direction the kingdom's coming is from, downward. And so we have this weird, almost Gnosticism that affects the church and how we think
100%
about
right.
this, right?
Yep.
Is we think that the kingdom is all in our heart, which is true, but not all in our heart. The kingdom, and if it's in your heart, let's say, my prayer, let's say all of Congress becomes Christian. The president's Christian, Senate, House, all of it becomes Christian. And everybody is excited about it. What do we have? We have a Christian nation.
Yeah.
That's what we have. That's how we started. 99% Protestant. We had 99%, or we were made up of 99% Protestants when the Constitution was ratified in 1787, 89. That's a Christian nation.
Right.
And
Don't let the ACLU know that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
But we have this now we have this kind of like weird Gnosticism that affects us, where we think almost like material is bad and spiritual is good.
Right.
God, Paul quoting Psalm 24 says the earth is the Lord in all its fullness, and he's applying that to food.
Right.
It's like everything that God has given us is good, and it's all the Lord's, and we should be so excited about it all. We give gifts at Christmas, so we have this disconnected Christmas where we're like, okay, we aren't Gnostics at Christmas because we give gifts because Jesus was the best gift, and we need to far more live out practical Christianity in our world,
Right.
and act like it all matters because it all does, and not have this disconnect between spiritual good, material bad, or whatever.
Right.
And Jesus is king, and he's king over it all. And he came. He wasn't Gnostic. He became flesh for us. John 1 in the Gospel of John was a clear fight and argument against Gnosticism.
Right.
And so I think that's been kind of a thought process that's really hurt us in America, and of course, like you mentioned already, just not knowing the history of the
Right.
church and kind of the historical theology that kind of got us to where we were at in
That's
1787, 88, 89. And we need to
You'll love this.
absolutely reclaim the kingdom
Right.
here on earth for Jesus and
Yeah.
all that it means. Go ahead.
Amen.
Yeah.
You'll love this. I mean, like I forget who said it. Now I'm going to lose the quote, but like essentially, America was founded by Scottish Presbyterians. Our
Yes. Oh, yeah.
republic,
Yeah.
our system of government, came from
Yeah.
that notion. But I totally agree.
Because Presbyterianism is a representative form of church government, and the Presbyterians were so involved in taking our nation and forming our nation. I don't think people give enough credit to how involved Presbyterians were
Yeah.
in actually the founding and the presuppositions behind our Constitution.
And then I'm going to throw my Baptist brothers in here. So the where the Baptist really came in, and the biggest contribution there was defining religious liberty, so that you don't have, you don't necessarily have councils and clerics, defining local city ordinances per se. You have some differences where you have, you look at the Rhode Island colony was founded on religious liberty. So you had religious pluralism in the informal establishment of Christianity.
Right.
So
That's
the pluralism back then was you can be any kind of Christian you want to be.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, we have religious liberty. Come on,
Yeah.
you want to be a Presbyterian, you want to be a Baptist, you want to be Catholic or whatever. Like there was all kinds of
So Thomas
distinctions,
Jefferson, he's the one that coined the phrase church and state, separation of church and state.
Right.
And it was absolutely coming from kind of that idea.
Connecticut.
Different kind of, America welcomes different kind of denominations.
Right.
We were founded as a Christian nation. The whole goal was never to say we're a pluralistic, religious nation.
Right.
Is that we are a Christian nation with different denominations.
Right.
So the whole, Congress shall make no law regarding the establishment of religion.
Right.
That was separating government from church, federal government from church. It was actually saying federal government, you can't say a darn thing about what the states want to do as it regards to Christianity. Congress shall make no law regarding the establishment of religion, which is why when the Constitution was ratified, 9 out of the 13 colonies had established denominations.
Yes, that's right.
Connecticut, I think it was Congregationalists, or Massachusetts was, and then you had your, Maryland Catholics.
Right.
So
Virginia was Anglican.
Yeah. That kind of thing. Yeah. So it was no problem with a state having established denomination. So the separation of church and state is not found in the Constitution, but even then, Thomas Jefferson had a working definition in the back that was coming from how our Constitution was ratified, founded in the context of the states and what they were allowed to do and what the federal government was not allowed to do. Now we flip that over its head and said the federal government can say whatever it wants about the establishment of religion, and we can tell churches what they can and can't do, and that kind of stuff. So
Gnostic dualism, I think, is responsible not only for the problem of wokeness, right? And you have that, but also Gnostic dualism traditionally, for the past, say, 50, 60, 70 years, has also, I think, been responsible for this idea that everything that is government related is relegated to kingdom of man, and Christians should just solely focus on kingdom of God. Because Christ's kingdom is not of this world. What Larry Arnn was articulating is what many evangelical Christians in the United States actually believe. Now, they don't vote that way, right? If they vote. But to your point, it was in the state of Colorado. So Texas has 25,000 plus churches. Colorado has around 6,000 churches and nonprofit organizations. When the Kelly Loving Act was being passed, very few. There was organized protests, but from small, disparate Christian groups that were protesting the Kelly Loving Transgender Act, vast majority of Christians were silent within their own state. It's the 4th largest state for evangelical activity. Billions of dollars go through the state of Colorado.
Amazing.
And what it articulates is that there's a huge gap in our theology where for decades Christians have imbibed on a secularist understanding of the state or a Gnostic dualistic understanding of Christianity, where the two, it's oil and water, they just do not mix.
Yeah. It's, I would say, since about the 1800s, the theology, we're living in a Christian culture that is built its theology off the last 200 years.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's not, our Christianity or our general version of Christianity here in America is not very deep in its historical Christian roots.
Right.
Dispensationalism, is a newer ideology in the church. You have the whatever political theology we have in the church is a mess. That's not rooted in historical Christianity. So we have this modern worship music. The way worship music is perceived in the church is so modern. In fact, it didn't even really come from the church. It came from, music bands back in the 60s.
Sure. Yeah.
And so we aren't, I'll say Christianity is a very shallow religion in America in general. Mm-hmm. And so there's so much that needs to be kind of taken back and we shouldn't be scared of theology. We shouldn't be scared of insisting on, one of the things that struck me when I moved to Moscow in 2002, Pastor Wilson told me, he said, resolve to have no problem Bible verses.
Yeah.
And that was just a basic exhortation, but it's super helpful. And part of that exhortation includes there's hard verses in Leviticus, and there's hard verses from Paul, and there's hard verses from Deuteronomy. And there's the Bible has a lot of hard verses. Ezekiel's got way more hard verses than people realize because they probably don't read it. But I remember that there's two things going on there. One is, yeah, it's God's word, so don't have a problem with it. Now, you might not be able to understand it well yet, or you might need to ask your pastor, how should I think through this verse or whatever. It might be difficult to sort through, but just the principle is, don't have a problem with this verse. Believe it.
Yeah.
Just believe it. Just know that God's in heaven and we're on earth, and he put his word together. He gave us every word in his Bible is intentional. He's not just a reckless writer. He's not a reckless God. And so we need to just believe his word on the jump, on the front end of it. And it doesn't mean I can answer everything. But secondly, it also kind of just gave me a peace with God, where it's like I don't have consternation, even though I have a verse that I'm really struggling through right now. I'm not against God. I love God. I love his word. And so I know, okay, whatever you're doing there, God, I'm going to believe it. I just got to kind of, figure it out, sort through it, talk to my elders, pastor, whatever. And that really creates a Christianity that's not just like, driven by doubts of God and driven by like, the world thinks this Bible verse is a problem.
Right.
Don't take your cues from the world. Just trust in God and work through it and be patient with it and don't let it emotionally rock you.
Yeah.
Just know that you receive it and you believe it. And that had a huge impact on my Christianity. But how many Bible verses or chapters in the Bible that the church just doesn't touch?
Right.
I long for the day where a big mega evangelical church pastor preaches through Ezekiel 23.
Yeah.
He'll never touch it. Most evangelical churches will never touch Ezekiel 23, Psalm 137. Barely they touch Romans 1 anymore.
Right.
We all know the problem verses that pastors aren't allowed to preach on, or they'll lose their biggest tither.
Right.
And that goes into the courageous thing we've been talking about, the theology thing we've been talking about. And the pastors, this is why I like pastors going chapter by chapter. Like you have to address everything in that text.
You do.
You can't skip it.
That's right.
And as opposed to like the modern evangelical thing is to go by topic, or there's evangelical church that was going through movies and Mario Brothers and all their sermons were based off, the latest Mario Brothers thing or the Spider-Man or Batman.
Right.
Or whatever. And so it's like, well, you're never going to get the word of God that way. This is actually probably not even a church really anymore in practice, the way you're kind of handling God's word.
That's right.
So,
well, brother, this is one of those podcasts where I feel like I could go like 3 hours.
Yeah.
I know we're constrained
Joe
by
Rogan
time.
it.
Yeah, Joe Rogan it. But I know we're constrained by time. But no, we got to do this again. We absolutely have to do it again. I love what you left off on, though. I mean, there should be no problematic text, right? All Scripture's God breathed and inspired by God, and Isaiah 55, like it doesn't return back empty,
That's
void,
right.
It
That's
accomplishes all the purposes for which it's been sent. So if we believe not only in the inerrancy of God's word, we believe in the sufficiency of God's word, right? To speak to all of life, all of salvation, every need that we have as the church. It's super important. Thank you for being bold. Thank you for getting arrested for the gospel. I think there's a lot of folks, and there's probably nobody listening to this, but there's folks out there that are still confused by what happened and have not learned the lessons, unfortunately. But I think we press on. I'm very hopeful, and I'm encouraged by what I'm seeing in this younger generation.
Very much.
So,
yep.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Hey, did you find this helpful? I hope you did. Please like and subscribe, share with a friend, and also go to standingforfreedom.com where you can find more content, articles, podcasts, and our Theology of Politics series, all at standingforfreedom.com.